start out for the roll call. Both myself and Councilman Perello are here. We will do the flag salute, and afterwards, if you would take just a moment, think kind thoughts from Mr. Larry Stein. He was involved in an accident yesterday, sounded like pretty serious. Mr. Molina, thank you for the email letting us know about that. And as there are updates, I'm sure Mr. Molina will let us know. I guess he has a fractured pelvis, or?
No, he said cracked hip.
Cracked hip. So we wish him well, and we'll keep him in our thoughts. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public comments, because this is a special meeting, the public comments are limited to items only on the agenda. If there's anyone that has any comments to address regarding the agenda items, that's fine, but it will probably be easier just to hold your comments till we do each item individually and address them then. So we will move to review and approval of the minutes. Councilmember, you had a chance to look at them? Are you okay with them? Yes. We will accept the minutes. Status update on city's annual financial audit by Eadie and Payne.
Thank you, Chairman MacDonald. It's my pleasure to introduce Eadie, Casareno, and Don Ecker. They were here before you on March 9th, giving you an update on where we were as of that date, and now they're here to give you an update. So I'll just turn it over to Eadie and Don.
You just want, Mr. Velasquez?
Just real quickly, do we have coffee at the minutes for the last meeting?
They're right over there on that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You know, about the agenda.
It's probably easier to stand up.
Okay.
Good morning.
Let's sort out, make sure we got all that stuff covered. Okay, we good on everything we need to hand out? Okay. Can you do like a soft shoe too while you're up there? No? Okay. We're bringing a...
No problem. Well, Eden and I thought we would change it up, where she normally starts off. Today we thought we would, I would kick it off and then we would go to her. But at the end of the day, the progress since March 9th, you can see on the March 9th column, we had 61 items. We call it our Gantt chart, where we had 18 completed items, and we had, great, thank you. You know what I'm doing. I'll be looking to read. Thank you. And so then on the city council meeting on March 29th, that had increased to 33, and we had 4 additional items that were added to the chart. And then as of the 11th, we actually, your team has gone from 18 to 44 complete. We have added 5 new procedures, and Eden, can you read those off as to the ones that have been added, please?
The ones that we added were the letter of credit extension, new trial balance with additional journal entries, payroll clearing fund analysis, schedule of prior period adjustments, and capitalized interest analysis. Those are the 5.
So, thank you. So, at the end, yes?
Can you describe which of those accounts is for?
The letter of credit extension, because of the letter that Union Bank had delivered to you like 2 weeks ago, we had to look at that and consider that they will provide you with a letter of credit extension. The new trial balance, that is because we need to get the journal entries that have been posted since, we started the audit. There's a lot of journal entries that have been posted by Christine and her staff. We need to get all of them into our system so that we can prepare the financial statements. Payroll clearing fund analysis, there have been issues with the payroll clearing not actually clearing out. In terms of the HTE trial balance, they use payroll clearing fund accounts in order to post temporary entries, and then they clear that out every month or so. They have not been cleared as of June 30, 2015, so that's an analysis that had been done. The schedule of prior period adjustments, because there are many prior period adjustments, we asked Christine and her staff to prepare a schedule of that. If it was just one or two, we probably wouldn't need this, but because there's a lot of them going to various funds, you have to get a schedule. Capitalized interest analysis.
Even before, I'm sorry, but early in some of our meetings with the task force, there were questions about prior period adjustments, and obviously, as we conclude the audit, it'll be very telling about some of the prior period adjustments that will go back years, but we're not there yet. Yes?
I apologize, but you can help me understand this chart. As I read it, it says that there are...
Excuse me. We have one more that you're going to go through.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Please.
Yes, so capitalized interest analysis that work came out from the analysis of the capital assets and construction in progress. They had been capitalizing interest into construction in progress, and that's a accounting treatment that is okay, but we need to know how that was done and if it was properly accounted for. So that's what we're looking at.
Question, I'm not sure of the status of this file.
Hang on, Mr. Molina, go ahead with your question. Ms. Miller will come back to you.
Well, I was going to ask a question on this chart, but if Mr. Miller's going to ask a question on what was just said. Oh. As I understand this chart, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories we're looking at. Alternative procedures not started, ongoing, in review, and complete. We're looking at March 1 task force, what was identified to us that needed to be done. And then as we progress, they go from, not started to ongoing or whatever. My question is, if we started out with all of the processes and procedures that are necessary, that's 61. What new procedures did we add to get to 65? And then what more procedures did we add to get to April 11? I'm just curious.
We just described the difference between the 65 and the 70, and 4 procedures were added during the month of March, all based upon findings of staff, the consultants, and ourselves. So you start out with an audit program and you adjust it based upon the findings of the audit. So it's fluid.
Now, these the 5 items that were added, and are these things well along? Are they finished? Well, I'm not really.
Well, as of the 11th, we have 26 items yet to go before we can begin to prepare a draft financial statements. And we'll get into that in our slides here coming up. But there's considerable work yet to be done.
In my mind, and I'm not quite sure why it's there, but I had a drop dead date of April 18th for something. Was that for the letter of credit, or in terms of getting numbers put together? Or?
Maria, let's go forward another slide, and then we'll come back to this. Whoops, sorry. What we showed the council on March 29th, I'm sorry, we did not show that. We literally talked about this that said, okay, if we get all of the schedules, the 70, which was 65, by April 4th, this would be our timeline to complete. Now today we're going to talk about a revised schedule that will extend that. But I think that answers the question in the sense that we were hopeful that we would have received everything by that date, and it did not happen.
I guess my overall concern is I want to make sure that because of our delays, we are not missing something that's going to negatively affect us, you know, in terms of promises to get people information or things of that nature.
I believe we have a lot of people looking at that, and to our knowledge, I think they were.
I think that the city has been required to, excuse me,
No, go ahead.
the city's been required to post with the National Securities Information Database called EMA a notice that we're failing to meet disclosure requirements. We've received a letter with MUFG, Union Bank, we're in discussions with them about that letter. So pretty much everyone is on notice. We've also been in contact with the State Controller's Office regarding the delay in the delivery of the single audit. So I guess you would say nobody's happy, but they know that we are having issues. In fact, we continue to request even delays for the submission for the GFOA CAFR award. Pardon me?
Sorry.
I
that
think it
was
was
mine.
somebody's phone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry for my phone. Sorry,
My voice went up.
So we're putting everyone on notice and describing that we have that situation and keeping them updated as to when we expect the financials to be available. And it's important information, but other than the MUFG letter, which we're having conversations about, no one has really indicated that they're going to do anything about it. They just are waiting.
And I just hope we don't get to the point where eventually someone says, we're tired of waiting, we're going to do whatever. But,
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Mr. Molina?
I think what you're talking about, didn't the Union Bank letter say that they wanted at least draft financials by May the 18th? And are you going, May the 9th, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
And-
that's it. Okay,
and we're
so then
working
you're
with-
on line to do that.
Well, we're working with the city, and we've had various calls, and we're all attempting to stay on top of it. So,
Yeah.
let's back up, Maria, please, to the
Next one?
the next one, please. So let's go ahead and click them all in. We have two new items that have become a concern that we are addressing. They add to when we will finish, but for example, the IRS is being quantified. Your legal counsel is giving us a letter, and that one is moving forward. The consultants being behind is an issue, because when they haven't finished their work, the staff has not had time to review it, and as a result, we haven't audited those schedules. We're going to talk to Maria and Dave after the meeting about an idea that we have to try to encourage quicker reporting with the consultants.
Now, when you say consultants, are you talking about Eadie and Payne?
No, we're your auditors.
Okay.
If I can add some clarity on that, you remember the council gave us some temporary financial expert help in order to get a lot of these schedules prepared so that they're auditable, that they're in audit condition. And so we have Urban Futures, you've heard a couple of presentations from Vanessa Burke. We have Muni Services on board, and then we have MV Chang as well. And so we have three firms currently helping us on a number of different schedules. The key ones are our capital assets, our notes receivable, and our cash with fiscal agent, which are the ones that we've really been focusing on. Part of the issue is that in order to get these schedules completed quicker, we would need a team here 40 hours a week ongoing. Part of the issue is that we do have consultant help, but we get them 1 or 2 days a week because they have multiple clients. And then, that's part of the issue is that we don't have full-time folks here to get the stuff, the basic work done. And Eden can provide more insight, and David and Christine. That's part of the bigger challenge around the consultant work. So it's great to have them here. We would need them here 40 hours a week in order to expedite it. When you get started on something, it takes a lot of time to work with the departments, get the information, ask the questions, you go back and forth, you get the backup, and it just takes quite a bit of time. And so I don't know if Don, Eden, or Christine, you want to add more clarity for the public and the task force around the challenges related to that. But
Okay, Mr. Velasquez?
Based on what I just heard, why is it we don't have them working longer hours? Or is it a budgetary issue?
no, the council.
What is the reason behind it? I know some of them don't even live here in town, they live out of this county. That's my question.
So I think part of the problem that you're seeing now, that you're seeing throughout the industry in Southern California, is that there's really a shortage of qualified people in this area available to work. So even the consulting firms have difficulty finding people who they can put on assignment who are able to do this. There aren't firms big enough to put in a team experienced in accounting. So we get good people, but we don't get them for extended periods of time. It's not like a corporation that can hire Buzell and bring in big consulting expertise. So we get them when they're available. Unfortunately, the best of them have multiple clients, and so those are the ones that are hardest to keep on site. And as I was coming in this year, the city had been looking for people who could even find people who could work in this capacity.
Follow-up
And that was
question,
pretty
if I may.
rare.
Because of what I'm hearing is, could that possibly create a bridge where you would not meet the deadline according to state control for the CAFRs?
We missed the deadline.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about May. After that, I think we will have more issues.
Well, I think that you can see from that progress chart that there is significant progress being made. Some areas just ended up being much more complex than you would expect as you step into the area.
Yes.
I'm just staggered. There are not adequate people. What is so special about these skills that are required that you can't find them in a state with 40 million people, several million who are on board right now?
Well, part of the, I don't know, Dave, I don't want to usurp the fun here, but
I mean, this may sound too high level, Mr. Miller, but during the 90s and the 2000s, layers of management were stripped out of local governments. And so in a period of the 90s, which was sort of flush with baby boomer generation people with lots of experience, those middle ranks got cut out. And training budgets got cut out. And basically people de-skilled their finance organizations so that many finance organizations just became transaction processors. So even though a general accountant can be, a corporate accountant can be an extremely good accountant, but the world of the, kind of the government accounting standards construct is complicated for people to get their heads around. It's very different, and so much of it is bounded by the legal framework, whether it's assessment districts or impact fees or how you deal with grant accounting. All of that becomes a real challenge to find those people, especially those who are sort of operating at a high level of accounting and also have some operational understanding.
If I may.
And we're not the only ones looking for this type of service either.
No.
City of Placencia just announced yesterday that they lost a little over $3 million from their CFO transferring to some bizarre account. So there is a lot going on right now. Mr. Velasquez?
Real quickly, based on what I'm hearing, what I'm hearing is there's a shortage of skilled, experienced personnel. Would Mr. Molina be considered a highly skilled, qualified individual to be hired as a part-time consultant or an advisor to the city, and I'm sure for a reasonable pay scale. See, I'm hearing confusing stories. I mean, it seems like every time I attend a meeting, it is frustrating for me. And all it creates is a delay, constant delay. Now I'm hearing, based on what you just said, that there's a shortage of staffing. But yet you have a highly qualified individual that nobody takes advantage of it. So I find it kind of conflicting when I hear you say, well, we can't find him. And we got one gentleman sitting right behind me. Why hasn't an effort been made to ask Mr. Molina, who is highly skilled, highly qualified, highly certified, and yet he's oblivious to the issue, and he probably knows more about what's going on in this issue than most of you, because he was part of the city of Oxnard for years. So that's the issue that I have when I hear you talk and make comments like so. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I can add some additional comment here. We actually, Christine and Eden and I had a lengthy conversation yesterday evening about where we are. And Christine will tell you, and so will the auditors, that we're very, very, very close in finishing several schedules. And the question we asked was, well, do we need to contact additional additional financial firms to get more help? And part of the issue is that when you, at this stage, it'll take more time to train them, and that's what's happening right now, is the ones that we have are so deep in it, and they are the ones that we need here more. So they advise that at this time, because we're so close, that bringing in additional financial firms would not be beneficial at this point, because it takes the time to train. It takes more time for Christine to oversee them, and so that's part of what we're weighing every single week. We say, where are we? What do we need to be done? And even you had some good insight around that, so you might want to share what you're seeing on a day-to-day basis, because you're here 40 hours a week with the staff and with the
here
At
40 hours a week at least, sometimes 10 hours a day. So bringing in, I understand, Christine has, already 10 people. She's supervising like several consultants plus her staff, working on all these things, and obviously that type of work is not just full-time, it's overtime. And bringing in more people to add to that is going to take a lot more of her time too. So what we really need is people who have the knowledge already to work more hours, and it just needs to get, it's very, very close. But there's decisions that need to be made, obviously, and that decisions need to come from city management. It's not just the finance department, to adjustments that need to be made, and all of those need analysis. And it's not the grunt work that needs to be done, it's the analysis, and that's the hard part.
Okay. Mr. Ecker, if you can go ahead and continue.
Yeah, and so maybe just to conclude with or add to what Eden said, we are taking key people like Hong off of other engagements, because this one is much more important. So we're also bringing back other people without overburdening Christine. So this is the schedule.
Can I ask a question on the previous?
Real quickly, please.
You talked about an IRS audit. Can you remind me what the details of that is, where it's at, and what does that entail?
We're getting a letter from your legal counsel to disclose it in the financial statements. We do not have those details at this point, but we expect to have it in the next 2 weeks.
But what is it that brought this to your attention? I mean, you obviously
There's an
didn't-
IRS audit ongoing, right, Steve?
That's my understanding, and we're not gonna get too deep into that
Right.
because our special counsel
Correct.
is working with the IRS
Correct.
on it.
Right.
Is there a dollar value that has been identified? Is it $1? Is it $10? Is there any?
We're asking the legal counsel to give us that number, and we will share it with you as soon as we have it in writing. We are, have not, that's why we're asking for the representation letter, is we're trying to define that liability.
Who are the legal counsels involved in that, may I ask?
It's Eadie and Payne is the legal firm.
That's Best and Krieger.
Best Krieger.
It's a large.
Yes.
Yeah, Councilman?
Councilman MacDonald, this is the first time we've done an IRS audit. I know that we have had discussions, we're trying to negotiate with the IRS. I didn't know about the audit. I'm grateful it's a little blue balloon was put in the martini glass up here.
We call it the bowl, but yes.
As one of the two council members that's here, and the peculiar setup of this room, I get an opportunity to look at the faces out there. And I'm thinking, if I was on trial for my life and I was looking at that jury, I'm hanging.
Can't hear you.
Hey, I'd like to ask the management, and you're here for Mr. Knight. When we hired these extra consultants, were they not given a scope, schedule, budget? Was there not some understanding on their part or management's part that this was like a priority? Fragility of the city of Oxnard was pretty significant and we wanted the work done? Because it's not personal. I know people don't like me saying that, but I know people that work in construction. I know people that have had construction done and instruct some jobs. A guy ties up several homes and he never finishes anything off. He leaves everybody hanging in the air. Sounds like what's happening here. I don't want to throw people that are incompetent into this thing. When I'm hearing that they have gotten multiple jobs and clients, I can understand it. They're not guys sitting around waiting for a job. But wasn't the understanding with the scope that was given to these people that there was also a schedule that they expected, our city expected the work done by a certain time? And I know you can handle it, but I need these guys, and I need an answer.
My only comment is that people are having trouble here.
Yes. That's a very reasonable question.
Could you repeat the question?
Chairman
Didn't hear a thing you said.
Perello, the question is, when we hired the consultants, did they not know that we were on a schedule, and did they not know the scope that we needed them to complete when we made the agreement and contract with them? And he likened the question to a construction job. When you hire a construction company, they know exactly how many houses they're going to build. And I'll just go with that analogy, Councilmember Perello. When you come to a construction site, you have an idea of what you're going to build, but if you find environmental cleanups that you need to get done, then that's something that is unexpected, and I liken it to that. That's a good analogy because they did know exactly what they needed to get done. When you get to the site, which is this one, and you start digging into the capital assets, for example, any normal city closes their construction projects when they're complete. And then you transfer them to, so they can start depreciation. And we didn't do that. And so when they find that we don't do that, then they have to go back 2 years back, 3 years back, 4 years back. They've gone as back as 14 years, and capital projects who have been closed are still open. Therefore, that is not something that they expected to find because that's not normal accounting procedures. And so that's one example of a number of them that we can share with you that prevents them from meeting their timelines. And we have regular scheduled meetings on what it is they're finding from capital assets to a lot of other things that they're discovering. And so that's a very reasonable question. If we did not have the kinds of issues that we're finding, we would definitely meet our schedule. And that, so on the flip side, if it gives you any consolation, They have, the fact that they're working closely with the consultants every single day, you know, that Gantt chart, and I don't know if you have it on here today.
We don't have.
That is a document that they review on a daily basis, and we are 90% on a number of schedules, but we haven't completed all of them, and that's why when they say we're very, very close, the delay you'll see is about 3 weeks right now when they go through it. And our goal right now, and you'll see that, is that we will finish the schedules by April 22nd, which is next week. So, you know, we've gone from April.
You can go to the last one if you like.
Well, hang on, I want to get Mr. Velasquez
But
real
I
quick.
just wanted,
If I may, we've heard that before. But basically what I'm hearing here is very simple. The delays and setbacks have been, based on what I heard a few minutes ago, are simply, the reason being, you haven't hired sufficient staffing. That's what I heard you all say repeatedly. Now, my question is this: was that due primarily because of lack of funding or because of negligence?
I don't think that's a question we can answer right now. Staff's gonna have to really look at everything we're
But that would
doing.
clarify
right?
everything, Brian.
I'm sorry?
That would clarify a lot. I mean, by that I mean simply, by that I mean simply,
Mr. Velasquez.
I have the floor. If I believe I have the floor. Thank you.
For a minute?
I screwed up.
It's okay. That's it. I'll just leave it there, Brian. Thank you.
Okay. I appreciate all the conversation stuff, but I really want to try and get through this, you know.
Sure. Let's go back to this one, right? This is the one we described to the city council on the 29th. And then, let's go to the very last slide where we have labeled it under construction. And Maria talked about April 22nd. And the reason that we have Hong in the back of the room, Hong, put up your hand. She is working with the staff here daily to encourage timely delivery of all of the consultants' schedules. So I'm going to let Eden talk about if we can get the information on the 22nd with the revised timeline.
So let me just back up before we get to the April 22nd. So we have been here since March 21st, pretty much on a daily basis. Hong and myself and another staff, Justin, who is our supervisor level from our firm. We have been working on a number of information that was provided to us already before, you know, when starting from the 33 completed to the 44. So we have been working on 11 items, and even more so than that, because we are trying to figure out if there is anything missing from those 11 items that that they have completed. We kind of cover that already. So we don't just give it back to them and say this is, you know, incomplete. We try to help them to deliver to answer the questions that the auditors may have. So that's what we've been doing. We believe that the 10 other items or 14 other items that need to be delivered could be delivered by the April 22nd. And we will be here to provide guidance, supervision to the staff as well as consultants to make sure that that is done. That's what we are going to propose. That would entail obviously a lot more work from us. That is not something that we have contemplated in the past. The work of an auditor comes from, you know, usually starts when the audit schedules are already done. And we do our testing based on that. But if that's not available right away and then there's things that need to be adjusted, we can help with that. So from April 22nd, we believe that we will be able to finish our audit field work within 2 weeks. That will get us to May 6th. And our draft financial statements 2 weeks after that. We will be able to provide draft financial statements to the bank because there's a 2-week lag there because obviously the city, the finance department, Dave, Maria have to review them and say that this is good to be submitted to the bank. And then 2 weeks later, we could, that's not even 2 weeks, 10 days later, we could have the final CAFR then. But, it is a big but, again, the deadline has to be met. And we've said it time and time again, there's no extensions, but it happens. And so I cannot promise you June 14 is gonna be June 14.
We can promise the 14th that we get the 22nd completed.
Yes.
Well, it's.
That
it is what it
is what it is. We try to get it, you know, done right away, but there's so many factors that are in place. You don't have, first of all, you don't have a finance director who can make these decisions right away. Maria has been standing in as an interim CFO, and Dave is assisting her, but they're not full-time there. That is not something that they do daily, hourly, and all of that. So that's another issue.
One real quick question, then I'll go to you,
Okay.
Mr. Miller. No, I'm gonna go first, then I'll
Oh,
come.
sorry.
The 5 additional elements that you gave us earlier in the verbal description, we can get that reduced to writing and sent to us. That would be helpful. And I realize there's one more thing to do, but,
Yes.
because I'm sure that our recording secretary probably didn't catch all of that, so it would be easier to add into the minutes. Mr. Miller?
If all the i's are not dotted and all the t's are not crossed by the deadline, is it possible to put a statement through with asterisks explaining the risks and the kind of unknowns and still be able to get the job done?
No,
It's not. So it has to be everything done.
there's no such thing as a piecemeal opinion. And, you know, one of the things that we need to keep in mind is you had concerns as a city about whether things went back more than a year. You now have confirmation that it does, and that takes time to fix messes.
Mr. Nash?
Thank you. I can't imagine there being anything more important as far as city business than the financials. So I don't think Mr. Nyhoff is in this room right now, but why hasn't he made Ms. Hurtado the full-time interim financial director? Because I'm hearing that would be of assistance to you, somebody full-time. So I'm just curious why that hasn't occurred, because what is more important than meeting our deadlines? Like those of us in the audience, you know, we're getting a little bit tired of always having the deadlines extended. So let's nail this baby down and do what we have to do. So
I don't disagree with you, and I know that Ms. Hurtado is doing as much as she can to sit in place of the CFO. And we are recruiting for a new CFO as we speak. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And, it's not a great answer. It's not an answer I like, but it's the answer that we have right now. Any other comments?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to answer Mr. Velasquez. Mr. Al, the issue that you asked about and what you understood, I'm sitting here and what I heard was different from what you said, from what you thought, what you feel that you heard. What I heard is that they're finding a tremendous amount of stuff they were unaware of. I don't like that answer. That's what I heard. That's what I wanted to clarify. Did not mean to step on your toes. And I'd like to just say, apparently they didn't hear in the back of the room the last time. As I sit here, if my life was on the line, and I'm looking out because of the way the seats are set up, I'm looking up there and I'm figuring I'm hanging. I'm looking at the faces back there and I'm going, they're not happy with what's going on. I can tell you, from looking at Mr. MacDonald's face, he normally smiles. He's not smiling. I'm not smiling. We're not happy with this. I don't know what the hell else we're supposed to do. But we're racing to this deadline. My concerns were, did the people know that there was a scope schedule and urgency and being told answers, which, I don't like them, but I can understand. I don't have anything else to say on that matter. I appreciate the work, but I can tell you, the interest in this issue has not, even by changing the times, the dates, and the location place, we still got a full room. That should be an indication to everybody, there's a lot of interest in this thing. I jokingly told Mr. Fischer, I know this is being recorded, and he's not gonna like it, probably, because I should shut up. Make sure your check's good. The city's check to Mr. Fischer. This is not funny, people. What's happening here is not funny. We're trying to get to the answer of what's going on for 200+ thousand people. Not just my skin or Mr. McDonald's skin, or anybody else's skin.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just conclude our presentation by saying that the reason also that the auditors and the firms that are helping us, as well as our new comptroller who has gone through these things before, they're being extremely thorough in their finalization of schedules, especially thorough because of the types of things that they're finding. And I say that so that when you do get your audit, we apologize for the delay. And in quoting Don, it is what it is. But what it is a situation that hopefully when you get the audit, you can find some comfort in that they are going to have the required prior year adjustments that are necessary so that you know that they've corrected everything that has been either overlooked or not communicated to you from the past. So those prior year adjustments will be there. And they will have recommendations that will provide clarity for you so that after years and years of not knowing, you will have this audit that's going to be complete. And between this audit and next audit, you're going to have hopefully the comfort that moving forward, we're going to fix all of the things that have not been fixed. And so that, I know it's not something you want to hear at this point in time because you want this done. The thoroughness that they're going through is, we have the risk person here because he wants to make sure I'm not going to do what prior auditing firms did. I want to make sure the audit we present to the council is complete. And so that concludes.
And I appreciate the presentation, I appreciate your comments. I wanted it done yesterday, but I also want it done right the first time, so it's how do we get both of those? And we may have to spend a little more time to get it done right and not have to come back and visit this for the 15th time, so.
Right.
Yeah, I see you. I'll give you just a second. So, it's a matter of getting it done right, and we have to take extra time, although none of us are happy about it, then that's probably necessary evil. Mr. Velasquez?
Yeah, just, can anybody give me an update on the state controller's request for the 28 items, the list of 28 items, or so that they were requesting? What is the status on that list as far as trying to meet what the state controller was asking of the city? Somebody else?
I don't know if we have that information here, do we?
Give me some synopsis if you can.
Yes, so how many questions were there exactly? 21?
28, a list of 28.
That's probably right.
21. There were 21 questions. It started with 18. It started with 18 and then they had 3 more, so there's 21 questions. And all of those.
She's saying 28.
28, okay, 28, okay.
Well, there were initial set of questions and there were initial set of questions and they came up with more
questions, yes.
But yes.
It was a list.
It's in the 20s.
Okay.
How about we just focus on the status of what
Right.
we're responding to instead of worrying about how many questions?
Right.
Yeah.
So all of those questions though have been answered and all of the information that they requested were provided to the state controller's report on the deadline that they asked us to do.
Thank you.
So they have not come back to us on anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to
Can I-
discuss the rate. Yes, sir.
My apologies, but on page 2 of the minutes, there's a couple of corrections, and I know you've already approved it, but I think they're significant. On page 2, Mr. Huber asked about the Gantt chart. It's G-A-N-T, not G-A-T. On the bottom, I was expressing the fact that receiving a CFO, so take the first not out, receiving a CSMFO Excellent Award does not mean that the city is not going into bankruptcy. Those are distinct differences, and just, if you would, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Also,
My
take
apologies.
the first not out after the Molina Express receiving a CS.
That's
Okay.
correct. Yes, thank you.
Councilman, is it okay with you? We will
Yes.
amend the minutes to reflect that if we could, please. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for the catch.
Yes, sir.
Discuss ratings for internal auditing firms.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Oh.
I'll be giving this presentation. I just walked out the side of the room. We wanted to discuss some of the rating issues with the internal audit selection process and get some direction from you today as well. So just a summary of where we're at today. This internal audit RFP is a result of items that were identified in the organizational assessment, specifically items 10 and 72. There was a call for the need for an internal auditor, and the council has had some interest in that for some time. Back in January of this year, we posted the RFP to the city's website and distributed it to numerous auditing firms. The response deadline was February 22nd of this year. And on March 9th, that was the first time the Fiscal Policy Task Force heard about this issue and was presented with various options for selection of the firm. Mr. Fischer had to check on certain items with respect to whether or not this could be a closed session item in terms of the interview. And so since that time, both the committee members have decided that they wanted to be involved in the selection process, and so they were part of the initial review from March 28th through April 14th.
And just a quick comment on that. Because we're a Brown Act body, there are Brown Act issues that we communicate back and forth on this. And after consulting with Mr. Schwartz in the DA's office, the advice from the district attorney's office was that we could participate in this process as long as we did not interact or share notes or do anything else. So Councilmember Perello and I have not communicated in any way, shape, or form on this information. Our stuff has all been independent.
What he means is we haven't talked. That's what he means, right?
Talked, written, sent love notes, nothing.
And there's been
This
no
is the closest we've been, is right here, right?
and there's been no transference of information from either member of the committee of the task force through staff to one another. So that's the issue with keeping this at a one-way flow level versus having staff be a conduit for information amongst the members of a legislative body. And that's what we worked with the district attorney's office on to ensure that the process that we were contemplating met with their understanding of what we could and couldn't do.
Question? If I may, that solves it for 2 of the 3 voting members. Did either one of you discuss any of this or question anything with regards to Mr. Millican's vote? That's one question, because it seems he's 1/3 of a vote body. The other question is, I'm assuming all the bids were received as of the final date, February 22nd, and that there was no communications prior to that or subsequent to that between staff or the elected body to any of the people that submitted bids, to give them a clue as to what position they may be in, how they may want to adjust their bids. None of that happened, is that correct?
That's correct, none of that happened. We did not have any interaction with any of the firms. We didn't allow anyone to resubmit a bid. What we received on February 22nd is what we received, and that ended the,
So the firms have not been communicated to subsequent to February 22nd at this point because, okay.
Mike,
Hang on a second, let me go to Mr. Millican, and then I'll come to Mr. Collins, then Councilman Rowe, come to you.
there was a request, actually, Mike, to two firms who didn't present clear descriptions of the number of hours that they were committing to the project. They just had fees without a clear description of hours. So a query went out and said, how many hours are you proposing? And that was the limit of that inquiry.
So there's no extensions or anything like that?
No, nothing, Mike.
Okay.
He answered the question.
Oh, okay.
And the only other thing I would say is that we did make staff available to the committee if they had any questions on the proposals, but none were presented to us.
And staff was very clearly directed that they were not to communicate any of our comments to the other member of the committee, so Ms. Millican.
There's one last comment on the idea that my rating represents a vote. It actually is information to the committee, but certainly is not determinative of anything. It's really the two committee members who would decide.
All right, so
it was just a kind of a professional staff member giving them a take on what I thought was.
So the final line is going to be really the vote of the council members that are here, not,
Yeah, so my vote wouldn't, other than being information to them, wouldn't sway the actual decision.
And our part of the process is simply to make a recommendation to council. Council ultimately decides which firm they're going to retain, so. Let me go to Councilman Perello, because I think you've been waiting a little bit, then I'll come back to you, Mr. Velasquez.
I didn't write down all the questions Mr. Molina asked, but I need to clarify something real fast here. I did not talk to any of these people that have applied. What I did do, I brought up my concerns about this process to staff. I brought it up to Mr. Nyhoff. I shared it with Mr. Millican. I don't think that skewed the vote, but I brought up my concerns. My concerns are addressed in my response to this process. And I consider them extremely valid concerns.
Okay, Maria, then I'll go to you, Mr. Velasquez.
And back to further clarify Mr. Molina's question about our financial expert advisor to the committee, which is Dave Millican. We did include his scores, and you'll see how we included them, but it really is up to the committee. He's here to provide them with his perspective and his analysis, given that he is our expert advisor. And we did include his ratings and how that ranking average between the raters plays into this. But it is going to be a conversation between the committee and see what they decide to do.
which we get to listen in on now.
Yes, you do.
Mr. Velasquez?
I have a couple of questions. Technically speaking, who is the committee? Mr. Bryan and Mr. Millican.
No, Mr. Millican just
So you are the committee. So both of you made the decision. I guess what I'm gathering, Mr. Millican just gave you information, clarification, what is needed.
Not before today, though.
So I guess, the question I have, a couple more questions pertaining to this. So Mr. Perello and Mr. MacDonald, you made this selection as to who you were going to choose. That's my understanding?
Well, we haven't done that yet.
No,
I haven't
you
seen-
will.
I haven't seen all the scores, and it's not a selection of who gets chosen, it will be a recommendation to council.
Right.
Council ultimately will make the decision as to who gets retained.
But you will be submitting the applicants or the individuals applying for that position? Okay, I understand that. So I guess my main question is, why, so I've served in other committees where we had select for the school board. And we always had residents partake in the committee, a non-biased outside party. I believe I made reference last time I was here as to why we didn't have an outside party like Mr. Molina, who is highly qualified. For the reason being, so it doesn't make it seem like it's biased. Me personally, I get whether it is or not, I get the feeling that it is biased. You don't have non-biased outside individuals representing the community, making the selection of something that is highly important as to what's going on today. So those are some of the concerns that I have as to one, why didn't we have an outside individual like Mr. Molina, who is highly certified and skilled, to represent me in the selection of these individuals? Because with due respect to both of you and even the council members, I don't believe they have more knowledge than Mr. Molina when it comes to finances and dealing with this kind of issues, in selecting auditors and consultants in this field. So those are my comments, and I still question why there was no outside resident partaking in this selection.
Typically, an RFP process is
If I can-
always an internal process. Hang on just a second.
I was going to clarify something in reference to my name. I think Mr. Velasquez may infer instead the pro bono work of an independent CPA who has an office here in Oxnard. I mean, they're willing to do that. Okay, so.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
But the RFP process has always been an internal process. There's never been any else. It doesn't mean it can't change, and we actually modified it this time around to have council members involved in it. Typically, it's done at the staff level without council input until it comes to us in the final report. So for this particular issue, we found a way, because Councilman Perello was interested in being involved also. We found a way to do it. We've tactically modified the process from what we normally do. Normally, it would all be done at the staff level. We would never see it until it comes to council. So we have adjusted it to a degree, and it may not be perfect, but it's the system we have at this point in time. Ms. Moore?
One additional point of clarification again. Since this position is supposed to report directly to the council, it seems only logical, it would be very questionable why staff should have been able to participate at all. So I guess I kind of differ with where you're going with this. It seems that the only way you could have done this is to get council's involvement in it, similar to what you do when you hire a city manager, when you hire the city attorney. This position, if I'm not wrong, reports directly to the council. So you need to be the ones anyway deciding who you're going to hire, not.
And we are.
Right.
Yeah.
But you implied that normally this would have been submitted to the staff and let staff do it, not in this situation.
Council always.
And I think that's why we changed it, so.
Okay. No problem.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So just to elaborate a little bit on this slide, we sent the RFP to 20 firms that were on our list that we were able to identify that were firms that do this type of work.
How do we put that list together?
We
Through professional organizations or?
Professional organizations. CSMFO actually has a directory of firms that are interested in certain types of work. So you can go to their website. That's mainly how we got our list for this. And a lot of the firms that replied, we did, in addition to sending it directly to the firms and posting it to the city's website, we did also post it to the CSMFO website. So a couple of the firms that responded weren't even on our list, weren't on any list. They saw it on the CSMFO website.
Maybe you could explain that acronym.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, which is a professional organization in the state of California.
Yeah, well,
Yes, sir.
my concern I have is when I went into the CSMFO, I think I'm still a member, their list included, I think it was more like 47 or 50 auditing firms, and they included the big four, and willing to do work for all cities of different sizes. So why did you choose, how did you pick the 20 versus the larger number to submit your request for proposals?
I don't think that there's a larger number. I looked on the website.
Well, I sent it to the council members so they've seen the actual spreadsheet from the website. It gives the firm name, the location of the firm, the phone number, the internet address, and the contact person.
Yeah.
So you should know that. You go in there today and it'll be there.
I have to look at it again, but
Okay.
there's different sections of the directory in that website. Some of them were, I think this was under the performance audit section or internal audit section.
I'll send you
But
the, I'll send you the
We'll take a
email.
look at that, but any of those firms that are interested in that type of work, if they're going on the CSMFO website, they would have seen the RFP because it was actually posted to that professional organization.
Just one real quick, hold on. Mr. Velasquez, you have-
I'll wait for the next page. My question is next.
Go ahead.
Okay. So we did receive 8 responses from our process, and these are the firms that that responded. As we've talked about, the proposals were ranked independently by 3 individuals, 2 of the members of this committee and our independent financial aspect, Millican. We set the ranking criteria with 100 points and chosen several criteria such as a demonstrated ability to meet the scope of work, the technical capability of the firm, the qualifications and expertise of the staff that would be assigned to the engagement, references, and also the cost. And so what we're asking the committee to do is, from the rankings that were done, determine which firms they want to interview of the top 2 to 3 firms resulting from the ranking.
Question for
Okay,
clarification
yes, sir.
on the last slide. I just was wondering if the applicants were aware of the ranking criteria before they submitted. In other words, was there a section in the RFP that says this is how you'll be evaluated? And were key resumes required as part of the qualifications and expertise?
I believe
And were they evaluated?
we were,
And it's public knowledge now, but did they know about it before they submitted?
Resumes were definitely part of the submission.
Well, did they know how they'd be evaluated once they submitted? I could have changed the way they made the proposal, that's just
yeah.
standard, well, I don't know, standard RFP.
I would have to go through it. I'm not sure exactly if we used those beforehand or not.
Just
Yes, sir.
really quickly, looking at the CSMFO website, under accounting services, there are 20 listings, and under audit services, there are 13. But some of the accounting services are temporary help services. I'm not sure how that matches with Mr. Molina's count.
If I could ask my question a different way. When did you come up with the ranking criteria? Before the RFP or after, or prior to the evaluation?
I think we came up with that criteria after the evaluation.
So it's,
If I may just add, I think one of the discussion points when the committee decided that they were going to be ranking and rating them, we wanted to give them a template so that it would be easier for them, based on the RFP, how, just make it an easy way for them to go through the evaluation, given that typically staff does that. And so that was the intent when staff developed. That way they had a template and we would receive the same type of information from the committee members.
absolutely, I applaud that, I'm supportive of that. The question is though, if the applicant doesn't know how they're going to be evaluated, and you came up with the evaluation criteria after they submitted the proposal, perhaps it's maybe something for the city to consider in the future to include the evaluation criteria in your RFPs in the future.
And I appreciate that. I guess my take on that would be is if you tell somebody too much ahead of time, then they're going to structure their submittal based upon that. And it may not be the truth, it just may be their crafty side. It's kind of like grant writing. When you write grants for a particular thing, what the buzzwords are that they're going to look for, and you make sure you include all those in there. I think I wanted to, I mean, we could
appreciate
go
your
back and
comment,
forth
but
both ways.
actually,
Yeah.
I've done a lot of RFPs.
Oh, I'm not saying you haven't.
Beforehand, and they don't craft it, because you can read that into them, whether they craft it or not.
Yeah.
It gives them the opportunity to know, am I going to be evaluated more on my technical ability or on my people? And that's basically what you say, is that your evaluation criteria, it's more important for your technical capability and your personnel than cost. So right now, they didn't know whether it was cost. If this is a lowest cost contract, it doesn't sound like they knew.
And this is not a lowest cost contract. The lowest responsible submitter is the construction side of it, but for services, we are not obligated to take the lowest cost presentation.
I appreciate that. We're arguing over the word cost, but the person.
No, we're not arguing, we're just having.
We're having a discussion over how do you evaluate it. properly.
Okay.
And whether it's lowest responsible bidder, they need to know what they're being, I think, personally, I think they should know, in general, how are they gonna be evaluated.
And I appreciate your comments.
So that's
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you.
Me too, I appreciate it. Something to look forward to make this whole process better, so that you're gonna find something out in a few minutes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes, so the results are on this slide. Basically, we drew the line at the top three firms, and you can see that the average, on April 7th, we had ratings from two members of the review panel, and with Councilmember Perello's ratings received on, I believe yesterday, we also have the average points as of today. So the top three firms are Moss Adams, Velasquez and Company, and Fiscal and Longard. And noting that on this slide, Councilmember Perello scored each of the firms 0. And so it doesn't change the overall ranking from April 7th. It just lowers the actual score, the net score. And so those were the top three firms, and each of the committee members had a different top three, but collectively and average is what is on the prior slide.
Mr. Miller?
Well, obviously, Councilman Perello's score begs us to ask the question as to why he rated them all 0. Well, I'll ask the question if no one else will.
I'm waiting to give you guys an answer.
You weren't gonna give that unless you were asked.
No, I was trying to figure out somewhere, I'm gonna get some laughter in this thing. Okay. We have a request for proposal ran out to a list of pre-picked applicants, multiple pages. This is not my expertise. I'm not a financial whiz bang. And I've admitted it many times. I'm not ashamed of it, just admitted it. I'm asking for help. I have people that have helped me. Some worked to get me elected, some didn't. But I've tapped people that I think are smart. And better yet, they haven't been proved wrong. I reached out to help people, and one of the individuals was Mr. Molina, the last minute, because I didn't have this information at the time that I was supposed to. There's still a dispute about that, but I've had it for a week. And I was supposed to get the information for the last fiscal policy and come up with my rankings. I was given Bryan MacDonald's book at 4:30 in the afternoon, and I was going to go into my office and look at the book and figure it out. This is the book. Okay? I didn't have books this thick when I was in school. And I did not look at Mr. Bryan MacDonald's books because I looked at it and I thought, shit, this is unimaginable.
Councilor, just for a second, I'm sorry. I want to clarify, when he says he was given my book, this is my book, he got his own book. He's never seen the stuff that I had, so.
The comments you made.
Well, technically, I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And when I saw those notes on there, I'm like, this ain't cool. So I said, I need to be able to have some time to spend this. So they went to the finance department because I was told that I was given the binder. I don't believe that I was. There's a dispute there. They gave me this binder, which comes from apparently the finance department, which is the same thing as the other binders. I'm told, I believe it. I'm looking at the material, I'm looking at the stuff, and I'm over my head, I need some help. I made 2 phone calls, the first one I couldn't get to, the second one I did, and I know I'm being taped. I'm gonna do my damn fool. When I look at this, and I look at the request for proposals, I'm going, wait a minute, that's not what the city council asked for. The city council asked for an audit because Mr. Nyhoff has serious concerns about City Corp. His words to me, and if he was here, I'd say them with him right here, that he believes that there's problems in City Corp as bad as there was in the housing department. And he's going to audit the PAC. I sit on the PAC board. I'm aware of big problems in the PAC, past management and past decision that board's done. A lot of money. The third one that was to be audited was the golf course. The mayor was adamant about that. Now, have I reached out to any other elected officials? Yesterday, I called the mayor and I said, look, my understanding was the golf course is supposed to be audited. I bet your goddamn ass supposed to be audited. That was a quote. I pushed that the overtime would be audited. Why did I push that the overtime would be audited? The council agreed with me. The overtime is 3 times the value of all the money that's going into city core, PAC, and the golf course out of the city's budget. There were 4 things to be audited. This outside thing was supposed to be 4 things. I got this letter with this information. I'm going, this isn't what we agreed to. Mr. Molina said, it's a few hours, you better get on your, and do something. He asked me to figure out what they said. I'm reading it, and I said, I don't know. He said, well, if anybody that would do this intelligently, they would put a spreadsheet out, and they would start to nail off what do they, are required, and what do they do. I'm going, it doesn't meet what we have. He said, that's not the issue, they want to score. They want to know what you got here. So the first thing, and this is no reflection on anybody else in this room except me. The first thing, candidate number 1. When you read this, this proposal goes out, it's supposed to be back by February 22nd at 4 p.m. There's no timestamp. Mr. Huebner, your points are well noted. There's no timestamp in any of these applications. One of them comes back, the first one, get it right here, pardon. The first one is dated 3/17/15. 3/17/15. Now you go back and you look through this, the goddamn proposal wasn't even put out before 3/17/15. But we get it back. So, I thought a little bit, this is for Mr. Velasquez. I had an opportunity to sit on the school board. They take it very seriously what they do with money, just like the city of Oxnard does. And there are certain things that are legal and not legal. And letting somebody come in after a bid process or getting information before a bid process is deemed by those legal counsels, and this is no reflection on ours, not legal. So I figured, this guy gets a 0. He doesn't pass the basic test. How is it in my lap that I'm supposed to see something that's not even legit? So I have obviously, at that point, a real, like, what is going on? Go to number 2. And number 2 in the book, they're identified as numbers. Number 2, well, he passed the date, but he failed, in my opinion, because he doesn't address the 4 things that City Council wants. And that is the first line, scope. The scope of what we put out is not the scope of what the city elected officials agreed to. Who made that decision? I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever know. But I double checked it with one other elected official, only spoke to one other elected official, and he said the question that I asked was right. It was specifically about the golf course. And I know that I brought up the overtime after the golf course issue was agreed to. Number 3, the date appeared to be right. Again, no golf course. Number 4, again, the scope, date appeared to be okay. But on this one, number 4, they only gave a proposal for city core and the PAC. They missed the overtime and the golf course. And they also have submitted 2 bids. One for the first year, one for the second year, contrary to what everybody else did and what apparently we were asking for. Number 5. Number 5, the date's apparently okay, but again, they missed the golf course. Number 6, same thing with the golf course. Number 7, Number 7, same thing with the golf course. Number 8, same thing with the golf course, but this one was very clever. They made mention of a change order. Of course, other scope of work will require a change order. I'm going, the reason that I'm complaining about what the city council approved and what I'm under the impression we're supposed to be hiring an audit for is so that we don't have to have any change orders and change direction of what we're gonna do, because there's no bid process on these change orders. So that's why I felt the way that I did. Now, another sideline. I have been asking for a long time, how do we pick the consultants? How do we do these things? And there's a question of the process, and Management Partners has identified various things. And one of the questions that have been asked in these fiscal policy task force, you can go back and look at the tapes. I'm very grateful that the natives are here taping this, because the city doesn't tape it. The public's gonna only find out because that guy back there and his wife take the time on their own dime to tape it. Yes, he may be plugging into city juice. On April 12th was the anniversary of my parents. And I'm not the most respectful kid in the world, but I did decide on that day I was going to the cemetery, and I went to Santa Barbara. And I did what I had to do. I'm coming back, and on the Rincon, my cell phone goes. You know, some of you are aware that there's been a SOAR issue going on. And I'm getting pissed off about how many people are calling me and what they're telling me to do. I'm not supposed to do this, I'm supposed to talk to everybody, I represent everybody. But I'm going, what is Los Angeles calling me for, man? Come on. Okay, you take the call. I'm driving down the freeway, I'm breaking the law, talking on the phone on the freeway. Hello, is this Councilman Perello? Yes, it is. Well, I'm so-and-so from Ernst & Young. And I'm going, Ernst & Young? What do they want? Who in the hell, Ernst & Young? And I'm going, wait a minute, Ernst & Young. I've heard of the name. I've heard of the name. And he says, I understand you're looking for people to make an offer on doing the bid for auditing work for your city. We're interested. And I'm like, holy crap, this is the auditing company. Now, Mr. Molina had in the past at these meetings, and in conversations I'd had with him in the past, identified big name, big ranking auditing firms. If any of you ever grew up and you watched the Academy Award, they make a big deal. One of these firms comes up and they hold the secret ballots to the kingdom, to the city. And it's one of the big 4 auditing firms. To my surprise, one of the big 4 auditing firms has an office in Camarillo. On the other side of the grade, there's another one. And we didn't even reach out to touch him. But this guy's calling me up. And he said, we're interested. And I said, well, you know, I think it's done, but let me ask you. This is, I hope you laugh because I took humor in this one. I said, are you one of the big 4 or big 8? He shot back one of the big 4. It's like a bragging right. He didn't want to be mistaken for one of the big 8. He wanted to be mistaken for known as one of the big 4. He said, we will make arrangements to come to your city. I will bring staff and interview what are you looking for and what we can do and what we can provide, even if we are not involved in this process. But I said, I'm understanding you don't bid on small cities. This is the 19th biggest city in the state, $300+ million. And he laughed. He goes, and I said, over 200,000 people. He laughed. We do services for much more communities than yours. We would never turn down the opportunity for work. So I want to share that with you. That's why I scored every one of them 0. I don't believe that this has been a straight up deal. I did not know that when the request for proposals went out, that they went out that way. A mistake on my part. I should have asked, what are the requests for proposals? But I think it's been brought up today. The council members that sit on this board asked to be involved. We didn't ask to be involved in figuring out the request for proposals. There was a degree of trust, which I feel has been broken when those requests for proposals went out. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
Let you know.
Mr. Molina?
I'm a little confused. I thought earlier we were told that the only people's votes that would count were the 2 council members. Why then are we adding a third average here, bringing it to an assumption that, well, there's an average? Theoretically, if there's only 2 votes that count, then we only want to know, in terms of a number, what those 2 votes are. Otherwise, what you just said about, well, Mr. Millican's vote doesn't count, is factually inconsistent with what you're doing.
If I can maybe address them?
Sure.
I believe what you have is a process where input is being given and the task force will make a recommendation to the council. Staff is not going to have a vote on that. Given this criteria that's, and the information that's been gathered, the task force will make its recommendation to council. Am I misstating that?
But my question is, if you only have 2 votes and one chooses not to vote, you don't have a majority vote. And if you add up an average of 2, that one of which is not a voting member, you give the impression that you do.
Well, perhaps that is the recommendation then, is that no recommendation
Well,
could be
I-
reached, no consensus could be
I'll be candid with you, I don't see us making a recommendation today to go forward to council based on Councilman Perello's comments. So
My apologies.
but that's just Ms. Millican.
I wanted to do a correction of something I said earlier,
Okay.
with respect to what Mr. Molina said. I think I got a redirect to the CSMFO's new website and did find the spreadsheet that he's talking about that includes 52 firms, 4 of which are the big 4 in different offices in Sergeant Hall.
Well, I didn't say 6 of which are the big 4. Mr. Velasquez?
I need to run after this question. I want to piggyback a couple of questions. In regard to what Mr. Perello just said. My questions are real simple. He did, based on what he said, he didn't rate any of these candidates or the firms, but yet on the flyer here, it shows that Mr. Millican rated them. That's my understanding on this. Am I correct in saying that? That he played a role in rating the 3 finalists? If that's
Mr.
true,
Millican, let me try and address that, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but Mr. Millican provided ratings of those, myself, Councilman Perello, and then of those scores, I think that's how we arrived at the
That's
top
correct.
3. But it will be Councilman Perello and I who make the recommendations to,
I understand that, Brian, but
So-
my point is very simple, if I may. So basically, I find a little conflicting, kind of contradictory, what I just heard earlier, that he doesn't play a role in the matter, but yet he gives advice, but yet, based on what you just now said, he's also rating the 3 finalists.
and let me, I don't know if you heard me, you may have been out of the room when I said this, but I don't see this committee making a recommendation to move forward to council.
Yeah, but you're,
Because based on your comments, Councilman Perello's comments, and all the other comments,
Yeah.
I think we need to relook at this process.
well, I'm not done with another George. Okay, so, again, I'm having an issue when I hear the consultants say that they don't play a role in this or that or that or this. It just totally contradictory, again, as I stated, that he did play a role in this. Excuse me, if I may.
I appreciate you said this, we understand your point, I understand your comment.
And wrap it up, because I have to go. So, by Mr. Perello's own admission, he didn't play a role in this whatsoever. So it
Yes,
was
he did.
basically based, am I correct?
He rated them 0, so we just took
Right.
the 0.
Today's the 15th, are you, let me finish, because I have to go pick up my grandson, he just got hurt. So, today's the 15th, according to this flyer, Mr. Perello hasn't evaluated anybody as of yet, according to this.
Yes, he has.
He evaluated them, he just didn't evaluate them with a good score. He gave them all 0s, but he did evaluate them.
Okay, so that's really not evaluating, but okay, fine. So, that's the issue that I have, that
They didn't update that.
even Mr. Perello has 0, so you took the score from Mr. Millican and yourself, and this is how you rated the 3 finalists. Am I correct? Okay, that's what I got.
Okay, Mr. Miller?
First of all, I couldn't think of 2 people on the council I'd rather have evaluate the proposal. And secondly, I think if you weren't considering Mr. Milligan's opinion, that'd be a big mistake. I can't think of anyone in the city more qualified to do the evaluation than Mr. Milligan. I think he should be included in the process. I think he went about it in the right way, actually. Also, the top 3 were all very close in scores, so I don't think the difference would make very much. I think Councilman Perello brought up some excellent points about process. You just have not followed a reasonable process. It was quite a theatrical move to rate everyone 0, but it certainly got my attention.
Mr. Nash?
This is obviously a flawed process, has been a flawed process. So just as a member of the public, I would very much recommend that it goes back to the drawing board and include at least two out of the big 4 accounting firms. So I appreciate Councilman Perello's comments, and I appreciate what you said also.
Thank you. Mr. Molina?
And I would second what Mr. Nash said, but I would want to make sure that the proposal lists those items that were identified by our elected officials as what they wanted. Even though I disagree with what they did, they made it clear what they want reviewed, and that needs to be put in the proposal so that people don't submit, well, if you want us to add more, it's going to cost you more. I mean, you want a proposal that includes everything that the council has asked for, and it's obvious part of it.
Yes, ma'am.
May I know you don't want explanations to all of the statements, so I'm not going to. I'll just clarify a couple of things if it's helpful to you. On the scope of work on the RFP, in October, we came to the fiscal task force. I think Bob Dice presented you the charter of what the internal audit program would look like. At that time, we were looking at a number of programs to start with. And the sequence of events was that the auditors that are in front of you right here, I'm glad they're here for this part of the presentation, but when they started their audit, they identified a red flag with the golf course. And they said they were going to start doing an audit on the golf course right as we were doing the RFP for the internal audit program. And so when we went to council, and I don't recall the exact date, but I can get it for you if you'd like. At that time, we told council that, and we spoke to council about, do we allow these auditors to complete whatever audit they're doing? They're going to do an audit report on the golf, and have this internal audit program focus on city core, PAC, and overtime, because I think Councilmember Perello added overtime when we were discussing the charter with the fiscal task force. And so we were going to focus on those three initial programs while the auditing firm, the internal audit program, does the risk assessments and identifies more. And then when these auditors finish their golf course report, we can give that to the auditors and add it to their scope if they needed to. All of this is almost, you're not yet at a point where you can't reverse, because when reverse the focus of the scope for this internal audit program, what the sequence of events will be is, if the policy task force reduces the firms to 2 or 3, we will invite them back to present to you both, and it'll be a process probably like this. At that time, you, the fiscal task force, selects one that you recommend to the council. When you recommend that auditing firm to the council, at that point, you can refine the scope that you want. It is up to you, the fiscal task force and the council, to determine whether or not you want to limit it to what's in the RFP. And then before we make the agreement or the final contract with the final auditing firm, you can make those adjustments. So we're in the middle of the process. I appreciate your feedback on how we can improve it, and we'll look at that. So I just wanted to clarify that one point. With regard to a concern that is, I think, valid from Councilmember Perello, and I appreciate him bringing it up. We just didn't want to overwhelm the committee with tons and tons of paper, but we do have emails from each of the proposers. When they submitted their proposal, which we then made hard copies of, we do have emails from them that they submitted their proposal within the time frame by the due date. We have emails, we can give them to the committee. We just have a lot of paperwork. We just gave them the proposals. And so the timestamp that you were referring to is the emails that we received, so it has the date. The one proposer that made that had a date afterwards, if you notice, the date was March 2015, so it was a typo. Some of these firms, they take templates, as you know, and they revise them, and so I did see that date, but typically what we do is when we receive the proposers, We do timestamp them, and especially when we do bids. I mean, we timestamp the bids in envelopes when you're doing low cost bidders, and because this is not a low cost, I don't know if you and staff timestamped it or just used the email submittals. I'm not sure what
Yeah,
those.
with these, we received all of them via email, so it's easy to look and see when actually they were received.
So, I don't know if that's helpful. Those are
Very
two
much.
critical ones, and I have explanations for others if you're interested. But it sounds like that none of that matters to the committee. It sounds like you want to reevaluate the process we've gone through, and we're happy to redesign it based on what's comfortable for both committee members.
I think it has to be contested between myself and Councilman Perello, so, comments?
Yeah, whatever we decide, I have 3 points, Maria, I gotta address right now. And Greg, I'm giving you a chance to change if you wanna change what you just said. If 3 people or 2 people were brought to the city council, we would give them the opportunity to refine, it would give the council the opportunity to refine the scope of the work.
Yes.
But they submitted a bid, and granted, these are not bids, but they submitted, which is one of the lines we're supposed to judge these people on, and I'm supposed to be determiner or a judge based on the amount of money. How are we going to be fair to the other people if now we bring the finalists in and we allow them to change their ranking? That's a question you don't have to answer. The second one is, third, there's 3. I was in the position of being one of the final judges. I'm having a hell of a time just trying to be a boss, let alone a judge. I'm looking at the data that I was given, and the date is significant. That's in the data. I have access to a couple of emails where they ask if there are any incidental costs or travel. I have that, but I don't have the other one. So I feel it was a valid point that I brought up. But I have on bottom, this one here, I need an answer now. The auditors, they're here. We're lucky to have them here. They found red flags with the golf course. Is any time being used auditing that golf course when we're supposed to be having these auditors work on the capital at the present time?
I'll ask them to Eden. I know I spoke to Eden about the golf board.
Well, the golf course is a part of the city, as you well know, and the golf course and the arts have been reported as separate funds in the past. When we issue our report this year, we're recommending that those be forwarded into the general fund. So there will be adjustments forthcoming as a part of the overall audit.
So for just a little guy who's a city councilman who carried the mail and did a lot of things, please answer my question this way. Are you using any of the time that we're now hoping that we were going to get as a capital to investigate the golf course?
Any remaining time that we have is not devoted to that, other than internal control suggestions that we've already documented that you will get later.
So the answer is no?
No. I, at some point, would like to comment about your process.
I appreciate any comment you give, Rick.
Wow.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Molina, I'll come to you in just a second, and Mr. Ecker, I'll come to you in just a second. And Councilmember, you didn't, because you weren't privy to what I did, the way I scored people in terms of cost is not so much what their scope was, but what they were charging for the entire scope, coming up with an hourly rate that each firm seemed to use. And that's how I rated them in terms of fiscal ability. And I was looking for somewhere around $175 an hour as an hourly rate. Some of my competition came out at $400 an hour. To me, those were not acceptable. Some of them came as low as $100 an hour, which was not acceptable. So I kind of looked at it in a different way, but with the intention of thinking that if there was an additional scope of work put in, this is probably the hourly rate that we were going to get used for, or get assigned to it. So, and it was just a different way of looking at it for me. Kind of anticipating that there was going to be more work beyond the original scope that we put out there. So that's how I looked at it.
And I'd just like to answer. When I got your book and I saw that there were marks in the book, I decided, and I'll tell you why, I decided I'm not going to do this twice. And what I mean by that, when I first got elected on this council, I'm not a computer guy. You're well aware that a lot of people are. I'm amazed I can use my phone. I was given an iPad. I've had, again, people that helped me. And when they gave me the iPad, the guy showed me, yeah, it starts moving. You can do all this stuff. All of a sudden, I started getting my reading fingers personal messages on the iPad. I put that thing away, and it has been put away and lost in my house since then. Because I didn't trust the system. I didn't trust the system. Because it's none of my business what he's done. I said it the other day. If I go into a voting booth, that's nobody's business what I do there. When I'm elected as official, yeah, I'm open book. But his personal business is none of my business. I wanted to tell you that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Mr. Molina?
Yeah, and Maria, I apologize, but there's a distinction between receiving an attachment, a PDF file, and considering that the formal submittal versus the requirement to have your proposal in a sealed envelope to be opened in public so that the public doesn't get the impression that that PDF files opened privately might have identified suggestions for change, which gives the submitter an opportunity to submit. I mean, maybe the auditor is going to talk about that. Yes, you can accept an email with a PDF file for purposes of starting a review, but for purposes of making sure that you have complied with the open public process, you want those sealed bids opened in public so that the public knows there's been no changes to whatever submittals came in. One, okay. Two, whoever advised you to not include the golf course in the proposal, you need to really question their integrity, because they knew these auditors had to get this financial audit done on and before the end of May. They also knew that the auditors were not going to be chosen until way after that. So to assume that they were going to overlap is just a lack of financial understanding, and if anyone in the finance department was giving you a suggestion to not put the golf course in the request for proposal, was not giving you good information, okay?
Thank you, Ms. Patterson.
My question is to Maria. Have you done this before where you've set out an RFP with guidelines, perimeters, and then gone to the last 2 or 3 groups and brought them in and then changed what you were asking them to do? Is this a common practice in Oxnard?
I don't think that's what occurred, and I'll defer to Mike.
Well, you were talking about adding the golf course and the overtime to the scope of what they were being asked to do, which would change. How do you know that one of the others that you didn't choose would in fact have been cheaper had you added those in and they had looked at the whole course of what you were requesting?
I think, number one, we're looking primarily at the hourly rates. They're bidding as an hourly rate on each of the components of the
It's an
RFP.
average hourly
So-
rate, Mike.
So but they could add additional scope, and again, this is a professional service. It's not a public project where they have to bid a certain dollar amount. There's one auditor could spend 40 hours on a component, another could spend 45, and it's a professional service. It's not based upon the lowest cost. And
I worked as a paralegal, I know how that works.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm asking a very simple question. Is this something that Oxnard does on a regular basis? If so, I need to go home, go in my archives, which are extensive and take up my whole half of the garage, and start digging out things in the past that I didn't have questions about, and maybe look and see if I do now. So is this something that goes back, or is this just a new practice?
Or an inadvertent practice
No, but
in
if I
this
may, because
time.
I make the statement, so it's a very good question. What I was trying to clarify was, no, ideally you want to stick to the scope. If the council, for example, at the point in time that we take the agreement to them, decide to augment it, I mean, is that a process that it gives them the flexibility to do that? And I'm looking to Dave and Mike on it, because do they have the flexibility? I think the question is, do they have the flexibility to add a scope before they finalize the contract, which is what your question is.
Let me go to Mr. Ecker real quick. He's been waiting patiently. That's okay.
I want to make sure that
Yeah.
The other gentleman that asked the question. Okay. I'm going to make comments, having chaired public and private audit committees. And at one time, I was a registered financial expert with the SEC for Sarbanes-Oxley. Internal audit functions are typically contracted for an entire year, and you may include specific areas, as you have done, but you would not direct them as the only items to be quoting on. It would be short-sighted, in my opinion, as a audit expert to do so, because when you get our report, you're probably going to extend other procedures. So it's my strong recommendation that you totally redo the RFP and you state what you wish, and then you can look for qualifications.
And don't limit their scope to
Correct.
just what you're,
Correct.
but include what you want as a list.
That could be part of it, but if you recall, last fall, we recommended that you have an internal audit process instead of a task force process. That audit committee would direct the internal auditors to look at special projects.
I think, Don, if I may, the primary scope that was presented in the RFP was to conduct a risk
I have not looked at it.
Yeah, so it was to conduct a citywide risk assessment.
I would be happy to look at it.
Sure.
I would, based on what's been said, I'm concerned that it doesn't say that.
Should we go to Mr. Millican real quick? I'll show you what I know. Mr. Millican?
My comments would be very similar to the ones that Don just made. Usually on a process like this, you, in some cases, are forming a relationship with somebody who you expect to have there for more than 1 year.
Right.
But you could change from year to year. So in some circumstances, the city has used what's called a request for qualifications, because qualifications are the most important thing to be considering. Cost is always in the background. The qualifications should be primary for work like this. This process tended to look toward the RFP approach, which is a difficult approach to manage in the kind of world that Don just described, especially given what we've discovered about the kinds of messes that are sort of we run into as we open different areas in the city. So that approach might be a better approach than trying to do a scope with specific bid, because I think you're likely, and I think that Councilman Perello is sensitive to this, that those fixed cost bids could blow up on you at any time depending on what the auditors find. And then you'd be in renegotiation anyway. So that's, that I think is one of the limits of this particular approach.
I'm going to go to Mr. Hurtado, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Molina.
The last thing I wanted to clarify on the intent of the charter and the scope of the Internal Audit Program. We started with exactly what Don referred to, which is we wanted this Internal Audit Program to conduct a risk assessment of the city and identify what the risk areas were that we would start with. And they could come up with a list, and the council could say, out of this 10 list, these 10 programs, focus on these 3. So the initial idea was to do that and to get that recommendation from the auditing firm. Because there was an interest from the council on focusing on saying, do that, but we're so in a hurry to also look at these programs while they do the risk assessment, focus on the PAC City Core overtime, which Councilmember Perello added, and the golf course are the 4 priority programs we want you to focus on. So we were on that track, and as I explained earlier, because these auditors, when they started, and remember this has been an ongoing, they started in the fall, and in the fall was when we were developing the RFP for this other internal audit program. When they said, we're red flag golf course, we're gonna do a special audit on them, we didn't want to duplicate efforts, and so we spoke to the council about allowing them to do the golf course and then us focusing on the 3 programs. So it's a process. Things have evolved, and so we're here at this point. And so if the committee, the risk assessment, as Don is suggesting, is definitely important, so the council knows, what are all the areas, and then from there you build your program. And so that might be just another piece of information that the committee considers as if you choose to redo the process.
Mr. Molina?
No, sir, I'm set enough.
Okay.
I think the most important thing is that the city and the council are addressing the fact that you need an internal audit process. And at the end of the day, we probably need to refine that process before completing.
I'd just like to clarify one thing. The reason for the overtime was when the police chief told me that they had spent $7 million in the first 6 months on overtime for public safety, and then we added maybe some overtime in city court. That was the initial thing. And then when we added all the overtime, it was 10 and something, and it was 3 times bigger than the overtime. It was 3 times bigger than the amount the city is assisting these other entities. That's why I'm pushing it.
Councilman, I'm not sure about your feeling, but I'm a little bit hesitant to move forward at this point. I'd like to sit down and have some discussions with staff, and I'm sure you do too individually, so.
I'd love to talk to you about this, but we can't, and I want to find out some more information before I do get a chance to talk to you again legally, because I don't want to get in hot water. I'm better enough already as it is, guys, but I can't not ask what I've asked.
Yeah, I think at this point, thank you for the presentation. Thank you to all of you, but I think we're going to have to revisit this and come back a little bit later, so we will move off this item and try and wrap this up. I have an appointment at 3, I'm hoping to make. Our next,
So much fun.
our next planned meeting is for May 11th at 9 a.m. Hopefully we'll be in a bigger room. Any other final comments on the audit? With that, we will adjourn to May 11th at 9 a.m. And we will notice everyone.